thousands and thousands of dollars for my parents. And I eventually, the Oxycontin got too expensive, moved on to heroin, and just ran amok, caused a lot of trauma in my family, caused a lot of pain for myself and people around me.
Did you ever think that you would be doing heroin?
No, absolutely not. I got straight A's and all the way up to high school, freshman year is when I got into it, and then it dropped. I was into sports. I played music. I did a lot of things that you would typically think a drug addict wouldn't be involved in early on.
So people shouldn't think that just because somebody's a cheerleader or
Sure.
a football player,
Right.
it can kind of be any.
Sure, yeah, it's a common misconception. I've heard of doctors that are, hooked. It affects everybody, every race, every social class, everything.
And what happened with your mom? You had run away, right?
I had ran away when I was 17 years old, and I was staying at a drug dealer's house, and I went out to my car to cook up a fix. It was Oxycontin at the time, actually, and my mom had one of my friends had told her where I was staying, and so she came up to the car and she opened the door and she went to grab me. She hasn't seen me in 2 weeks. She's excited, she's scared, she's kind of panicked, and I hit reverse on the car because the most important thing I had going at that moment was my drugs, and that's kind of the monster that it turned me into. And she got stuck underneath the car, rolled off, and I just drove off to make sure that I could get my fix. I later found out she was okay, scratches and bruises, but that was the point for me where I realized that there's something wrong.
But you basically ran your mom over?
She got stuck underneath the car and she was holding on with the door open, so she basically got dragged. She didn't, I didn't run her over.
And then what did you do?
I sped off as fast as possible because I knew they'd call the cops, and there were helicopters, and it was a big scene and a big deal, and I drove off and basically just hid in a Kmart parking lot or something for a few hours.
And that was when you realized
Something's wrong. Something's wrong.
And you were doing. Did you do heroin or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
How does that? I just can't even comprehend. Like, how does the first time you do heroin happen? And are you shooting it or are you smoking
Shooting it. I mean, everybody's different, but that's ultimately what it leads up to. And for a lot of kids, especially in this area, it starts with Opana, it starts with Oxycontin, and then that gets too expensive. That actually costs more than heroin does. So you get hooked on Oxycontin and you figure, oh, well, I can't afford this habit anymore, so I'm going to buy some heroin. At that point, you've already been stealing, you've already been doing things you told yourself you would never do, so why not,
How many times have you been to rehab?
5.
And did you ever go to jail or prison?
No, I had 4 felonies, and I got caught the night before the warrant was going out for my arrest, so I kind of lucked out in a sense.
Have you had friends pass away?
Yeah, a lot.
How many?
Off the top of my head, 6 or 7 that I know of.
Say it for me, like in one sentence, because my question will never be in it.
Sure. So I've had probably 5 or 6 people that I can name off the top of my head that have overdosed. Beyond that, the ones who haven't are still doing the same thing.
Overdose and die.
Yeah, overdose and die. Absolutely.
Okay, and you said at one point that you wanted to die, right? But you just...
Yeah. It got to the point where I was hurting the people around me so much. It got to the point where I was hurting myself, and I didn't want to live anymore. My big plan, the greatest idea I had at the time was to drive far enough off to where I could overdose in my car, nobody would catch me, and save me during the overdose process, and I wouldn't have to live that way anymore. That was my best idea.
How are you doing now?
Good, I'm coming up on 2 years.